Out of all the things I've ever grown in my garden, these black hollyhocks have the most insane, deep, and rich color, which gave me a fun idea. What if I harvested them and turned them into a plant dye? So I've been harvesting the flowers and we're gonna do it together. I've been growing these black hollyhocks for just over a year, and there's two things I need to be honest about early on. First of all, black hollyhocks aren't really black. They're kind of a deep crimsony purple, and if you look at them in full sunlight, you'll easily see just how stunning, but not black, they are. They are still the coolest colored flower I've ever grown, and the way that they grow is also fascinating. While the stalks you see here are maybe 5 feet tall on a good day, the stalks that were growing earlier this summer were literally 12 feet tall, which is when I saved a ton of seeds so I can grow more of these in the next season. Now, the second thing I need to be honest with you about is that I don't think I've dyed a piece of clothing since I was a kid at summer camp, and I have been so excited to do this, and have been doing as much research as I possibly can to make the best use of these stunning, crunchy, dried flowers. Whenever you're using or making natural dyes like this, it's a good idea to also use natural fabric. So I looked through my white shirts and picked a washed 100% cotton white tee as today's participant. The tools for today are a big non-reactive pot, an electric burner I've had for about 12 years, and this mysterious and suspicious looking powder. This is alum, which is short for potassium aluminum sulfate. In the world of natural dyeing, alum is a mordant. A mordant is simply something that helps the color bind to the fabric fiber so it doesn't wash out right away. Alum is one of the most common choices, and with black hollyhocks it usually pulls out more pink and purple tones. The fun part of this world is that different mordants can shift the color in really dramatic ways. Iron will darken things down into grays and blues, while copper can bring out greenish hues. So even with the same dye source, i.e. these black hollyhocks, your choice of mordant opens up a whole spectrum of results. That said, I am going for a deep, rich purple, so I'm using alum. The first step is to weigh my shirt and then simmer it in a pot of water with 10 to 15% alum based on the fabric weight. This shirt is just about 200 grams, so I'm dissolving about 30 grams of alum in this warm water. You might wonder why I'm doing all this outside with an electric burner, and the simple answer is because I live in an old house in Pasadena, California without central air, and simmering a hot pot of water for as long as I'll need to doesn't sound fun indoors. The first round of simmering is going to be about an hour, and I checked about every 15 minutes to make sure the shirt was fully submerged and that it wasn't creeping up to a boil, as this can mess and damage the quality of the fibers. You don't need to cover your pot, but since I was doing all of this below my ginormous olive tree, I slightly covered it so as not to have any volunteer additions. After it'd been about an hour, I let things cool down a bit, wrung out the shirt, gave it a good rinse with my little DIY outdoor shower setup here on my trellis, and then hung it up damp. Now we're on to the real fun and potiony part of the process, wherein I'm filling up the pot to the same level it was before with fresh water. You're supposed to do about 1 to 2 cups of dried hollyhock petals per quart of water, but I have so many that I figured dumping them all in with this amount of water would be just fine. I quickly realized that just fine is an understatement, because as I started to mix in the petals, the water turned the deepest purple I've ever seen a liquid be, and... Now, I know I probably shouldn't say this, but this definitely looks like forbidden Kool-Aid to me, and it doesn't smell half bad either, but I'm not going to risk anything, so we'll put it back and let it finish the process. For those who are curious, hollyhocks are technically a medicinal plant. They're in the mallow family and related to marshmallow and share some of the same soothing properties. Traditionally, people use the flowers and roots to calm sore throats, ease coughs, and soothe irritated skin. These days, they're not as widely studied or prescribed as marshmallow, but they're still considered a gentle, supportive herb with a long history of folk use. That's one of the reasons I started growing them, but as soon as I saw the beautiful flowers, I knew I wanted to enjoy them for as long as possible and eventually turn them into a dye. Now, with all the petals fully submerged and hydrated, it's time to simmer gently for about an hour, checking periodically to make sure everything is submerged and that you're not at a boil. Technically, you can stop this once the water turns a deep purple, but why not get the full benefit? You can even let the liquid cool overnight to intensify the color, but given just how many flowers I put in, I decided an hour would more than suffice. Once the timer had gone off, it was time to strain out the petals, and this is probably where I struggled the most. I forgot to mention it earlier, but the reason hollyhocks are great for soothing coughs and sore throats is that they're full of mucilage, a slippery gel-like compound that coats and calms irritated tissues. It's wonderful when you're drinking it as a tea, but in the dye pot, it makes straining a little tricky and squishy.
I first tried using a strainer and that wasn't great, so I found some cheesecloth and poured everything into another bowl. I think the petals hid the color a bit before, but now just look at how rich and awesome this color is. I kind of wish I had a use for this beautifully dyed cheesecloth now because just look at that purple. It's so vibrant and rich that even the paper towel I use to wipe things up looks cool, and I'm definitely going to hold on to it for too long before I end up throwing it away. I will say that 95% of the liquid came out by pouring everything into the bowl, and then the last 5% came from squishing the cheesecloth. You can do this with gloves once it's cooled, or use another bowl to really smash it, but given just how mucilaginous the petals are, it will pretty much always feel like there's more left. Get what you can and compost the leftovers. Now comes the moment we've all been waiting for though, and we're adding the shirt to the dye as it starts to warm up again. You can see pretty quickly just how intense this dye is, and similar to the other steps, we're going to simmer this for about an hour. If there is one part of the process where you really want to come check in regularly, this is it, because you want to get full coverage on whatever it is you're dyeing. I would love to tell you I was super productive in those 15-minute gaps, but I just kept looking at how cool the other stuff that I had inadvertently dyed was looking, including my hands, the cheesecloth, and paper towel. After a full hour, it's time to turn off the heat, and you can either let things sit in the dye bath for a few hours or even overnight. I want as much color as possible, so I'm letting this sit overnight indoors. A few hours in, as it started cooling down, I couldn't resist checking in on it.
And maybe it's just me eating with my eyes, but this thing smells kind of delicious. Maybe it's just the Kool-Aid factor. Am I crazy? Maybe I'm crazy. Either way, it is now morning of day 2, and this thing has been simmering, and by that I mean it's just been sitting, and that color is amazing. It's hard to show the color with just how dark it is, but it's this kind of like deep, almost indigo bluish purple. I have a feeling it's going to end up being very blue. I definitely learned my lesson yesterday as far as how hardcore the dye color is, and I finally got the color out of my hands, but today we're going to get some nitrile gloves. Now let's take a look. Oh, that's so cool. I am keeping my distance because that is some potent color. I never would have guessed or predicted this color. It might have to do with the pH and how the alum interacted with the hollyhocks. I think I've got most of it squeezed out now. It's a kind of deep, I don't know that I would say navy. It's navy-ish for sure, but it is this wonderful, rich blue color. And now sadly comes the fateful task where I have to rinse it, although fingers crossed that it doesn't lose much color. I'm using my shower wand and rinsing. This is all natural and plant-based, so this will do just fine. And the soil down here below. There is still a good bit of pigment coming out of there. It is now pretty much running fully clear. There is no pigment coming off of it. So now we're gonna hang it to dry out of the sun. Honestly, that didn't really lose too much pigment. That is still a really beautiful color. I am really, really happy with this result. Honestly, this is probably the most fun I've ever had doing a garden experiment, because not only is it something that I'll be able to wear on a daily basis, but it's a story I'll be able to tell about how, while gardening can obviously produce a ton of food and herbs and a lot of nutrition that way, it can also do cool things like this, like producing natural plant dye. So whether you've got kids and you're looking for a fun family project, or you're just looking to kind of take your clothing in a more natural route, I really recommend doing this. I'm sure I needed way less hollyhock flowers than I actually use, so if you can get your hands on some, I'm sure you'll get a delicious and delightful looking result like this. As always, it is incredibly helpful if you both like and subscribe to the channel, and let me know down in the comments if this is something you would do, and if you've dyed your own clothes before, let me know what your experience has been like. This has been Aaron, aka Garden Zaddy. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one.